The argument started over dishes. Stupid, mundane. The kind of domestic disagreement that shouldn't mean anything but somehow meant everything when you were already standing on the fault line of a failing marriage, already feeling the ground shifting beneath your feet, even if you couldn't quite admit it yet. I'd come home from work at 7:30, later than usual because we'd had a project deadline that required me staying late to finish documentation, nothing dramatic or exciting, just the normal demands of my job as a civil engineer working on municipal infrastructure projects. The kind of work that paid well enough to support our comfortable lifestyle but wasn't impressive at dinner parties, wasn't something Lila liked to brag about to her friends, wasn't the high-powered career she'd apparently expected me to have when we'd gotten married 4 years ago. The dishes from breakfast were still in the sink. The coffee mugs I'd washed and left in the drying rack that morning were still there, not put away. The kitchen counter had crumbs and a smear of jam that hadn't been wiped up. Small things. Things that happened in normal households where both people worked and sometimes domestic chores didn't get done immediately. But Lila was standing in the kitchen when I walked in, and something in her posture, rigid, angry, spoiling for a fight, told me this wasn't going to be a small thing. Not tonight. "You didn't do the dishes," she said without greeting, without asking how my day was, without any of the normal pleasantries that used to exist between us. I set my briefcase down by the door and loosened my tie. "I did them this morning. Those are from breakfast. I didn't have time to put them away before work." So they've been sitting here all day, while I've been working from home, looking at this mess, having to work around it because you couldn't take 5 minutes to put things away. I had to leave at 7 to make it to the site meeting on time. I would have put them away if I'd had time. "You always have an excuse." She turned to face me fully, and there was something in her expression I'd seen more and more frequently over the past year. Contempt mixed with disappointment, mixed with barely contained frustration. "You always have a reason why you can't do the simple things, why you can't pull your weight around here. Why I have to manage everything while you just coast through life doing the bare minimum." I took a breath, trying to stay calm even though I could feel my pulse quickening, could feel the familiar tightness in my chest that came with these arguments that were never really about what they were supposedly about. "Lila, I left dishes in the drying rack. That's it. That's the extent of what I didn't do. I'm not sure this warrants. It's never just one thing with you." Her voice rose, that particular pitch that meant she was working herself up to something bigger, using this small thing as an entry point to everything else she'd been holding back. "It's a pattern. It's a way of being. It's you just existing in this house without actually participating in maintaining it, without actually being a partner. I pay half the mortgage. I do laundry. I cook dinner 3 nights a week. I clean the bathrooms every weekend. I'm not sure what else you want from me. I want you to care. I want you to give a shit about something beyond your boring job and your boring routine and your complete inability to be anything other than mediocre at everything you do." The word hung in the air between us. Mediocre. She'd used it before, increasingly frequently, like she'd finally found the word that perfectly encapsulated her disappointment in me. "I'm not mediocre," I said quietly. "I'm steady. I'm reliable. I show up. I do what needs to be done. If that's not enough for you—" "It's not!" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "God, Evan, it's really not. You're so focused on being steady and reliable that you've forgotten how to be interesting, how to be exciting, how to be anything other than just there, just existing, just taking up space. What do you want me to say? I want you to fight. I want you to have some fire, some passion, some goddamn emotional response to anything. I'm standing here telling you you're not enough and you're just accepting it, just nodding along like you agree with me. Would you prefer I yelled? Would that make you feel better? I'd prefer you acted like you cared whether or not this marriage survives." I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt something settle in my chest, something cold and final. "I've cared for 4 years, Lila. I've cared through every criticism, every comparison, every time you've made it clear that I'm not what you wanted. I'm tired of caring and having it never be enough." "You're pathetic," she said, and her voice was calm now, clinical almost, like she was making an observation rather than launching an attack. "God, you're actually pathetic. My ex would never act like this. He would fight. He would have the balls to actually engage instead of just standing there taking it like a beaten dog." The mention of her ex wasn't new. She'd been bringing him up more and more over the past 6 months, always in the context of things he would have done better than me, ways he would have been more impressive, more exciting, more worthy of her. I'd tried to ignore it, tried to tell myself she was just frustrated and lashing out, that she didn't mean it. But something about the way she said it tonight, the casual certainty, the absolute conviction that her ex was superior to me in every meaningful way, made me realize she absolutely meant it. "You should have stayed with him then," I said. She blinked, clearly not expecting me to engage. "What? If he's so much better than me, if he wouldn't act pathetic like I do, if he's the kind of man you actually respect, you should have stayed with him. Or you should leave me and go back to him. Problem solved." "That's not, I didn't mean—" She seemed genuinely thrown by my response, like she'd expected me to beg or defend myself or try to prove I was better than her ex. "I'm going to go for a walk," I said, grabbing my keys from the counter. "When I get back, maybe you can decide whether you actually want to be married to someone you think is pathetic, or whether you'd rather be with someone you respect." "Evan—" I walked out before she could finish, closing the door behind me with careful control, not slamming it, not giving her the dramatic reaction she seemed to want, just leaving, choosing not to participate in whatever game she was playing. I walked for an hour, past our neighborhood with its neat rows of suburban houses and manicured lawns, past the park where Lila and I used to walk together when we'd first moved here, past the coffee shop where we'd spent Sunday mornings in what felt like another lifetime. The whole time, her words echoed in my head. My ex would never act like this. She'd been comparing me to him for months, making it clear that I fell short, that I was the safe choice, the boring choice, the one she'd settled for when what she'd really wanted was him. And suddenly I was tired of competing with a memory, tired of trying to be enough for someone who'd decided years ago that I wasn't, tired of defending myself against comparisons to a man I'd never met, but who apparently represented everything I wasn't. When I got home, the lights were off downstairs. Lila had gone to bed, or was pretending to, avoiding the continuation of the fight. Fine. I wasn't interested in continuing it either. I went to my home office, the small room off the kitchen that I'd converted into a workspace, where I kept my drafting materials and project files and the accumulated detritus of a decade-long career in civil engineering. And I opened the drawer where, months ago, I'd seen something that at the time I'd dismissed as meaningless. A business card, expensive-looking, embossed, with a name I recognized from Lila's stories, Marcus Chen. Her ex-boyfriend, the one she'd dated for 3 years before me, the one she'd almost married before they'd broken up for reasons she'd never fully explained, the one she'd kept this business card for despite claiming she'd cut all ties with him. I'd found it when I was looking for a stapler 6 months ago, tucked into the back of the drawer underneath some old receipts and forgotten paperwork. At the time, I'd told myself it didn't mean anything, that she'd probably just forgotten it was there, that I was being paranoid. Now, sitting in my office at nearly 11 p.m., I picked up that business card and looked at the phone number printed in elegant script at the bottom. I should have thrown it away. Should have confronted Lila about why she still had it. Should have trusted my instincts 6 months ago when I'd first felt that twist of unease seeing his name. Instead, I'd ignored it, told myself I was being insecure, told myself she loved me even if she didn't respect me, told myself a lot of things that, in retrospect, were probably lies. I heard Lila laugh in the bedroom, that particular delighted laugh that used to make me smile because it meant she was genuinely happy about something, Now it just made me feel hollow because I couldn't remember the last time I'd made her laugh like that. She was probably on her phone, scrolling through social media or texting her friends or doing whatever she did that brought her more joy than I apparently could. I looked at the business card in my hand, at the phone number, at the name, and I made a decision that would change everything. I pulled out my phone and dialed. The phone rang 3 times. I was about to hang up, about to tell myself this was stupid and invasive and probably a violation of about a dozen relationship boundaries, about to laugh at myself for being so insecure that I was calling my wife's ex-boyfriend like some jealous teenager. Then someone answered. "Hello?" A woman's voice, tired, suspicious. Definitely not Marcus Chen. I froze, my prepared speech. "Hi, this is Evan. I'm married to Lila, and I just wanted to talk to you about dying in my throat." "Hello?" she said again, more forcefully this time. "If this is another telemarketer, I swear to God—" "I'm sorry," I managed. "I was trying to reach Marcus Chen. I must have the wrong number." Silence. Then, "You have the right number. Who is this?" "My name is Evan. Evan Park. I was trying to reach Marcus about—" I didn't know how to finish that sentence. About what? About my wife, who won't stop comparing me to him? About whether he's been in contact with her? About whether I'm crazy for thinking there might be something going on? "Oh my God," the woman said, and her voice changed completely, from suspicious to something else, something like resigned understanding. "You're her husband, Lila's husband." My blood went cold. "How do you know that?" "Because I'm Marcus's wife, and because this isn't the first time I've gotten a call about your wife and my husband." I sat down heavily in my desk chair. "What?" "How long have you been married to her?" she asked, and there was no hostility in her voice now, just a kind of exhausted sympathy that was somehow worse than anger would have been. 4 years. "How long has she been mentioning Marcus? Making comparisons? Making you feel like you're not measuring up to some perfect ex-boyfriend she used to have?" I couldn't speak for a moment. "How did you—" "Because she did the same thing to the boyfriend she had before you. He called me 2 years ago. Same situation. She'd been comparing him to Marcus constantly, making him feel inadequate, using my husband as a weapon against his self-esteem. When he finally called to ask Marcus to stop contacting his girlfriend, he got me instead. Just like you just did. Stop contacting. Marcus has been in contact with Lila?" Another long pause, then, "You really don't know, do you? You haven't seen her phone. You haven't checked her messages." "No, we don't do that. We respect each other's privacy." "Respect," she said, and it wasn't quite a laugh, but close. "Right. Look, I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to listen carefully because I've learned the hard way that men don't want to hear this, but they need to. Are you sitting down?" "Yes." "My husband has been in contact with your wife for the past 8 months. Regular texts, long phone calls when I'm at work or asleep, emails, photos. They've been having what I would call an emotional affair. Nothing physical as far as I know. They haven't met in person, but everything short of that. He talks about her constantly, compares me to her. Makes it clear he thinks he made a mistake letting her go." I felt like I was falling even though I was sitting down, like the room was tilting around me, and I couldn't quite get my bearings. "That's not— Lila wouldn't—" "Has she been getting secretive about her phone? Taking calls in other rooms? Texting more than usual? Going out more often without really explaining where?" Yes to all of those things. Things I'd noticed but dismissed as normal, as her having her own life, as me being paranoid and controlling for even questioning. "She has been talking about him a lot lately," I admitted. "Comparing me to him. Saying he would have done things differently, better. But I thought that was just— I don't know what I thought it was. Frustration with me, maybe." "It's grooming," Marcus's wife said bluntly. "She's grooming you to accept the idea that you're not good enough, that he's better, so that when she eventually leaves you for him, It'll somehow feel like it was inevitable, like you weren't enough to keep her. Meanwhile, she's been feeding him the same line about how her current relationship is dead, how she made a mistake leaving him, how she's just waiting for the right moment to make a change. How do you know all this? Because I have access to his email. Because I installed tracking software on his phone when I started suspecting something 6 months ago. Because I've read every single message between them, seen every photo she's sent, heard every promise they've made each other. Her voice cracked slightly. I've been living with the knowledge of this affair while trying to figure out what to do about it. Whether to leave, whether to confront him, whether to tell you. I've been paralyzed by it, honestly. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I didn't know who you were. I didn't have your contact information, and frankly, I wasn't sure you'd believe me. The last boyfriend who called, the one before you, he didn't believe me at first. Thought I was crazy or jealous or making things up. It wasn't until I sent him the screenshots that he accepted it was real. Do you still have those messages? The ones between Lila and Marcus? All of them. Hundreds of them, going back 8 months. Would you like to see them? Yes, I said, even though part of me wanted to say no, wanted to hang up and pretend this conversation had never happened, wanted to go back to my comfortable ignorance where I thought my biggest problem was my wife thinking I was boring. Give me your email address. I'll send you a compilation. It's not going to be easy to read. Fair warning, she says things about you, things that will hurt. She says things about me to my face that hurt. I doubt it's worse than that. You'd be surprised what people say when they think no one's listening. I gave her my email address, heard her typing. Sent, she said after a moment. Evan, I need to ask you something. Okay. What are you going to do with this information? Are you going to confront her? Leave? Try to work it out? I don't know yet. I just found out my wife has been having an affair 30 seconds ago. I haven't had time to process it, let alone make decisions about it. That's fair, but whenever you do decide, I need you to know something. Marcus and Lila have been planning to meet, in person, next weekend. She told him you'd be out of town for work, that she'd have the whole weekend free. They've booked a hotel room. The confirmation is in one of the emails I sent you. The room tilted again. Next weekend. I'm supposed to be at a conference in Chicago. That's what she told him. She said you'd be gone from Friday through Sunday, and she'd tell her friends she was going to a spa weekend so no one would question where she was. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry. I know this is a lot. But I thought, you deserve to know. You deserve to know what's happening in your marriage. I wish someone had told me 8 months ago instead of me having to discover it myself. Why are you still with him? I asked. If you know all this, why haven't you left? She was quiet for a long moment. Because I've been with him for 12 years. Because we have 2 kids. Because leaving would mean blowing up my entire life, and I've been trying to figure out if I can survive that. Because I'm scared and angry and hurt and I don't know what to do either. But that's my mess to figure out. Right now, I'm more concerned about making sure you know the truth about yours. Thank you, I said, and meant it despite the fact that she'd just shattered my entire understanding of my marriage. I know this probably wasn't easy. It wasn't. But it's the right thing to do. Check your email. Read everything. Then decide what kind of man you want to be in response to this. The last boyfriend, the one who called me before, he forgave her. Tried to work it out. She left him 3 months later anyway for someone else. So make your decision carefully. I will. And Evan, for what it's worth, I read your wife's messages about you. Read what she says to him about your marriage. And none of it is true. The things she says about you being pathetic, being boring, being inadequate, that's all projection. She's the one who's broken, not you. She hung up before I could respond. I sat in my office, staring at my phone for a long time. Then I opened my laptop and checked my email. There was a message from an address I didn't recognize, sent 2 minutes ago. Subject line, What your wife has been hiding. I clicked it. The email contained a PDF attachment, 187 pages. I downloaded it and started reading. The first message was from 8 months ago. A text from Lila to Marcus, sent at 2:47 a.m. on a Wednesday while I'd been asleep next to her in bed, completely unaware that the woman lying inches away from me was reaching out to another man in the darkness. Can't stop thinking about you. Is that wrong? His response, 3 minutes later. Only if you think it is. I think about you constantly. Have been for years. You're the one who got away. I shouldn't be texting you. I'm married. This isn't fair to Evan. To the wrong person. You know it and I know it. We never should have broken up. Maybe. Not maybe. Definitely. You were always meant to be with me. You know that, right? What we had was real. What you have with him is compromise. It's complicated. It doesn't have to be. Come back to me. Leave him. We can have what we should have had 5 years ago. I sat back from the computer screen, my chest tight. 5 years ago, Lila and Marcus had been together. Then they'd broken up for reasons she'd always been vague about. We wanted different things, she'd said. The timing wasn't right. 3 months after their breakup, she'd met me at a friend's party. We'd started dating. A year later, we'd gotten married. I'd always wondered if I was a rebound. If she'd chosen me because I was safe and available and the opposite of whatever Marcus had been. But she'd insisted she loved me, that I was what she wanted, that she had no regrets about how things had ended with her ex. Apparently, she'd been lying from the start. I kept reading. From Lila, 1 week later. I dreamed about you last night. We were back in your old apartment, the one on Riverside Drive with the view of the city. Do you remember that place? We were so happy there. Marcus. I remember everything about us. The way you laughed at my stupid jokes, the way you'd curl up against me when we watched movies, the way you looked at me like I was the only person in the world who mattered. I miss that. I miss you. Lila. I miss it too. Sometimes I look at Evan and I feel nothing. He's nice, he's stable, he's everything a good husband should be on paper. But there's no spark, no passion, nothing like what we had. Marcus. Because he's not me. He's never going to be me, and you're going to spend the rest of your life comparing him to me and finding him wanting. From Lila, 2 weeks later. Evan asked me tonight why I seem distant. I almost told him, almost said that I've been thinking about my ex, wondering if I made a mistake. But I couldn't. He looked so sad when he asked, so pathetic, like he knew something was wrong but was too scared to really push for answers. Marcus. He knows. On some level, he has to know. Men always know when their women are thinking about someone else. He's just too weak to confront it. Lila. You're probably right. He's always been weak. Lets me walk all over him. Never fights back, never stands up for himself. It's exhausting being with someone who just accepts everything. Marcus. You deserve someone who challenges you, someone who matches your energy, someone who isn't afraid of you. From Lila, 3 months ago, after what must have been one of our arguments. Had a fight with Evan tonight. He left dishes in the sink and I called him on it, and instead of apologizing or fixing it, he just looked hurt and walked away. Like I'm the bad guy for wanting him to pull his weight. I'm so tired of being the villain in my own marriage just because I have standards. Marcus. You're not a villain. You're someone with self-respect who refuses to settle for mediocrity. He should be grateful he has you. Instead, he's making you feel bad for expecting basic competence. That's emotional manipulation. Lila. Is it? Sometimes I wonder if I'm being too hard on him, if I'm expecting too much. Marcus. No, you're expecting what you deserve. If anything, you're not expecting enough. You should be with someone who exceeds your standards, not someone who can barely meet them on a good day. I had to stop reading for a moment. Had to get up and walk around my office because sitting still with these words was impossible. This was my wife. The woman I'd shared a bed with, shared a life with, shared dreams and plans and quiet Sunday mornings, and she'd been telling another man that I was weak, pathetic, manipulative, mediocre. Every frustration she'd had with me, and I knew I wasn't perfect, knew I had flaws and made mistakes, had been filtered through Marcus, reframed as evidence that I was fundamentally inadequate. And he'd encouraged her, validated her worst interpretations of my behavior, turned every normal relationship conflict into proof that she'd married the wrong person. I went back to reading. From Lila, 6 weeks ago. I've been thinking about what you said, about leaving, about not settling for mediocrity. You're right. I deserve better than this, better than him. I deserve passion and excitement and someone who actually makes me feel alive. Marcus, so do it. Leave him, file for divorce. Come back to me where you belong. Lila, I want to. God, I want to. But I need to be smart about it. We own a house together. We have joint accounts. If I just leave, if I just file without preparation, I could end up with nothing. Marcus, so what's your plan? Lila, document everything. Every time he falls short, every time he disappoints me, every time he fails to be a good husband. Build a case that he's been the problem all along, that I tried to make it work, but he was impossible to be with. Then when I file, I'll have evidence. I'll be able to show that I was the one trying, that he was the one who destroyed our marriage. Marcus, you're brilliant. This is why I love you. You don't just react, you strategize, you think 3 steps ahead. Lila, I learned from the best. You always taught me to plan for every contingency. The cynicism was breathtaking, the calculated cruelty. She'd been setting me up for months, deliberately framing every interaction through the lens of my failures, building a narrative that would justify her leaving and maximize what she'd get in the divorce. And I'd had no idea. I'd thought we were just having normal relationship struggles. Thought maybe we were going through a rough patch. Thought if I just tried harder, was more attentive, did more around the house, somehow things would get better. I'd been fighting for our marriage while she'd been documenting ammunition to use against me when she destroyed it. From Lila, 4 weeks ago. I told him today that my ex would never act as pathetic as he was acting. I wanted to see if he'd fight back, if he'd show some spine. He just looked sad and walked away. I actually felt bad for a second. Then I remembered, I'm doing this for me, for us, for the life we deserve to have together. Marcus. Good. Don't let guilt manipulate you into staying. You've given him 4 years. That's more than enough time for him to prove he was worthy of you. He failed. That's not your fault. Lila. He's going to be so hurt when I leave. Marcus. He'll survive. People always do. And honestly, maybe this will be the wake-up call he needs to become less pathetic. Maybe losing you will force him to actually develop a personality. From Lila, 3 weeks ago. It's official. Evan has a conference in Chicago next month. Friday through Sunday, 3 whole days. That's our window. We can finally see each other in person. I can finally be in your arms again after all these years. Marcus. I've been waiting for this. Tell me when and where and I'll make all the arrangements. Lila. Somewhere nice. Somewhere we can really reconnect. I want this to be perfect. Marcus. It will be. I promise. I've already been looking at hotels. Found a place with a presidential suite that has a view of the whole city. Nothing but the best for you. Lila. God, I can't wait. I've missed you so much. Missed how you made me feel. Evan has never made me feel like you did. Never will. Marcus. Because I know you. Really know you. Not the version you present to the world, but who you actually are underneath. Your ambition, your passion, your refusal to settle. Evan doesn't see any of that. He just sees a wife who's supposed to make his life comfortable. From Lila, 2 weeks ago. Started telling my friends that I'm going on a spa weekend when Evan is at his conference. That way no one will question where I am or ask to come with me. Everything is falling into place. Marcus. You're incredible, so thorough, so careful. We're going to be so happy together. Lila. We are. I know we are. This is what was supposed to happen 5 years ago. We just took a detour. But now we're finding our way back to where we belong. From Lila 1 week ago. Evan tried to be romantic tonight. Made me dinner, lit candles, the whole thing. It was sad, like watching someone perform a play they don't understand. I ate the dinner and thanked him and went to bed early because I couldn't stand watching him try so hard to be something he's not. Marcus. What he's not is me. That's his fundamental problem. He's trying to be romantic in a way that would work on someone who doesn't know what real romance feels like. But you've experienced the real thing, so his attempts just feel hollow. Lila. Exactly. It's like comparing a good reproduction to the original masterpiece. The reproduction might look fine to someone who's never seen the original, but once you've seen the real thing, the copy is just depressing. I closed my laptop. Couldn't read anymore. Couldn't sit with the casual cruelty, the methodical betrayal, the complete rewriting of our entire relationship through a lens that made me into a pathetic placeholder while she pined for the man she was apparently always meant to be with. 4 years of my life. 4 years of trying to be a good husband, a good partner, a good man. 4 years of believing we were building something real together, and she'd spent at least the last 8 months treating me like an obstacle to overcome, a mistake to correct, a problem to solve. Not a person. Not someone with feelings who deserved honesty and respect. Just an inconvenience. I sat in my office as the sun came up, surrounded by printed pages of evidence, understanding finally and completely that my marriage had been a lie for longer than I'd realized. Maybe from the start. Maybe she'd always seen me as second best. Maybe I'd always been the safe choice she'd made when what she really wanted wasn't available. And now that Marcus was apparently available again, or at least willing to cheat on his wife for her, I was expendable. The evidence sat on my desk in neat stacks. 187 pages of messages showing exactly who my wife really was when she thought no one was watching, who she became when she had someone validating her worst instincts, encouraging her cruelty, helping her justify her betrayal. I'd been trying so hard to measure up to some standard I didn't even understand. Trying to be exciting enough, interesting enough, worthy enough. Trying to fix whatever was wrong with me that made her look at me with disappointment and contempt. But I wasn't the one who was broken. She was. And no amount of me changing or improving or becoming more like Marcus would have fixed that fundamental brokenness. Because the problem wasn't that I wasn't him. The problem was that she couldn't appreciate what was real because she was addicted to the fantasy of what might have been. I read all 187 pages. It took me 3 hours. By the end, I felt hollowed out, scraped clean of any illusions I'd had about my marriage or my wife or my understanding of reality. The sun was coming up by the time I finished. I could hear Lila stirring in the bedroom, getting ready for her day like this was a normal morning, like she hadn't spent months systematically betraying everything we'd built together. I opened a browser and researched divorce attorneys. Found one with good reviews who specialized in cases involving infidelity. Sent an email requesting a consultation that morning. Then I opened my file storage and started downloading everything I could find. Bank statements, tax returns, mortgage documents, insurance policies. Every piece of our shared financial life that I might need to prove what I'd contributed, what I was entitled to, what I deserved to keep. I didn't sleep, didn't shower, just worked methodically through the documentation process, building my case, preparing my exit strategy. At 7:30, Lila came downstairs dressed for work. Remote work, which meant comfortable clothes and minimal makeup, nothing like the dressed-up photos she sent to Marcus. She looked surprised to find me already awake, sitting at the dining room table with my laptop. "You're up early," she said, heading to the kitchen to make coffee. "Couldn't sleep." Something like that. "Are you still upset about last night? About the dishes thing?" because I've been thinking about it, and I might have overreacted. I was stressed about a work deadline and I took it out on you. I'm sorry. It was the first apology she'd offered in months. Might have meant something yesterday. Meant nothing now. It's fine, I said. Really? You're not going to sulk about it all week? I'm not sulking. I'm just tired. She poured coffee, added the cream and sugar she liked, took a sip. Well, I have meetings all morning, so I need to focus. But maybe we can talk later? Clear the air properly? Sure. She left the room, taking her coffee upstairs to her home office. I heard her door close, heard the faint sound of her voice as she started her first video call of the day. Professional, polished, completely normal. No indication that she was someone carrying on an affair, planning to leave her husband, spending her nights texting another man while I slept beside her. I looked at my laptop screen, at the email from the divorce attorney who'd already responded saying she could see me at 4 p.m. today. Then I looked at my printer and the 187-page PDF that was still open on my screen. And I made another decision. I printed the entire thing. All 187 pages. Every text, every email, every damning message that showed exactly what my wife had been doing behind my back for the past 8 months. The printer ran for 20 minutes, churning out page after page of evidence. I organized it carefully, chronologically, with highlights and tabs marking the most significant revelations. Then I went to the folder where we kept important documents and pulled out our marriage certificate, our joint bank statements, the deed to our house with both our names on it. I laid everything out on the dining room table, the marriage certificate in the center, the evidence of betrayal stacked neatly beside it, bank statements showing what I'd contributed to our joint accounts, mortgage documents showing I'd paid the down payment and 3/4 of every monthly payment. It looked like a trial exhibit, evidence arranged for a jury. I sat down to wait. Lila came downstairs at 6 p.m., done with work for the day, looking relaxed and content. She'd changed into loungewear, expensive yoga pants and a soft sweater, the kind of casual luxury she'd cultivated since we'd gotten married, and our combined income had allowed for higher-end comfort. Hey, she said, walking toward the kitchen. I was thinking we could order Thai food tonight. I don't feel like cooking, and I'm guessing you don't either. She stopped mid-sentence, finally noticing the dining room table. I watched her face change, confusion first, as she tried to understand what she was seeing, then recognition as she got close enough to read the headers on the printed pages, to see her own words in black and white, then panic. Evan, what is this? Why do you have... She grabbed the top page, read it, went pale. This is private. These are private messages. How did you... Your boyfriend's wife sent them to me, I said calmly. Well, ex-boyfriend. Though I guess technically he's your current boyfriend too since you've been actively continuing the relationship. Hard to know what to call him. You called Marcus? Her voice was high, strained. You had no right. I didn't call Marcus. I called the number on his business card that you've been keeping in your desk drawer for the past year. His wife answered. She had a lot to say about you, about him, about the affair you've been having for the past 8 months. It's not an affair. We're just friends. We're just talking. I've read every message, Lila, all 187 pages. I know about the hotel reservation for next weekend. I know about the lies you've told me about where you've been. I know what you've been saying about me to him, calling me pathetic, boring, a doormat. I know you've been planning to leave me but wanted to make me look like the bad husband first so you'd get a better divorce settlement. She dropped into a chair, the printed messages still in her hand. I can explain. Please don't. I read the explanations. 8 months worth of them. All the rationalizations about how I'm not enough for you, how you deserve better, how you and Marcus are meant to be together. I don't need to hear more. Evan, please, it's not... It was just fantasy. We weren't actually going to do anything. It was just texting, just talking. It didn't mean anything. I slid another document across the table. That's the hotel reservation. Presidential suite. Next Friday through Sunday. Confirmation number, Marcus's credit card on file. Your name listed as the guest. Does that look like fantasy to you? She stared at it, her mouth opening and closing. You told me last night that my ex would never act as pathetic as me, I continued, my voice still calm, still controlled, even though inside I felt like I was made of broken glass. You compared me to him, like he was some gold standard I was failing to meet. So I called him, and you know what I found out? That he's been cheating on his wife for 8 months with you, that you've been cheating on me for 8 months with him, that both of you are exactly the kind of pathetic you accused me of being, except worse, because I've never lied to you, I've never betrayed you, I've never made you feel small so I could justify doing whatever I wanted. I'm sorry. Tears were starting now, streaming down her face, her hands shaking as she tried to shuffle through the pages like she could somehow make them say something different. I'm so sorry, Evan. I don't know what I was thinking. I was confused and lonely, and I made a huge mistake. 8 months is not a mistake. 8 months is a choice. Multiple choices, actually. Hundreds of individual decisions to text him, to lie to me, to plan a future without me while pretending we still had one together. Can we fix this? Can we try therapy? Can we? I pushed another document across the table. That's a consultation confirmation with a divorce attorney. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. You're welcome to get your own lawyer. She looked at the paper like it was a death sentence. Maybe it was. You're divorcing me? Just like that? Without even trying to work on this? What would we work on, Lila? The fact that you've been telling another man you regret marrying me? The fact that you've been counting down the days until you can leave me? The fact that you think I'm boring and pathetic and not good enough for you? I can't fix those things because they're not about me. They're about you. You're the one who's broken here. That's not fair. Fair? I felt my control slipping slightly, felt anger seeping through the calm facade I'd been maintaining. You want to talk about fair? Is it fair that I've spent 4 years trying to make you happy while you've been auditioning my replacement? Is it fair that you've been making me feel inadequate while you were the one betraying our vows? Is it fair that I had to find out about your affair from your boyfriend's wife instead of from you? Evan, I'm done, Lila. We're done. You wanted excitement and passion and someone who isn't me. Go get it. Go be with Marcus. But you don't get to keep me as your backup plan while you figure out if he's really what you want. You don't get to destroy our marriage and then act surprised when there are consequences. My phone buzzed, a text message. I glanced at it, then turned my phone to show Lila the screen. It was from Marcus's wife. If you need me to testify in the divorce proceedings, or if you need any additional evidence, I'm here. You deserve better than this. Lila read it, and something in her face crumbled completely. You're really doing this. You're really ending our marriage over some text messages. I'm ending our marriage because you ended it 8 months ago. I'm just making it official. She sat there crying, her perfect composure completely destroyed, looking small and lost in a way I'd never seen her look before. Part of me, the part that had loved her for years, that had tried so hard to be enough for her, wanted to comfort her, wanted to tell her it would be okay, wanted to fix this like I'd tried to fix everything else in our relationship. But I didn't. Because I finally understood that I couldn't fix this, couldn't fix her, couldn't make myself into whatever she needed me to be. I could only decide who I wanted to be in response to her betrayal, and I wanted to be someone who respected himself enough to walk away. I moved out the next day, packed a bag with clothes and essentials, took my laptop and work files, left everything else for the lawyers to sort out later. Stayed with my brother in his guest room while I figured out my next steps. The divorce attorney was efficient and thorough. With the evidence of Lila's affair, emotional and about to become physical, and the documentation of my financial contributions to our marriage, she said we had a very strong case, Infidelity might not matter in a no-fault divorce state from a legal standpoint, but it mattered in negotiations. It gave us leverage. Lila hired her own attorney, fought the divorce initially, claimed we could work things out if I'd just give her a chance to explain. I refused to engage, communicated only through lawyers, made it clear this wasn't a negotiation. The marriage was over. We just needed to figure out the details. Marcus's wife filed for divorce the same week I did. Apparently my phone call had been the catalyst she'd needed to finally act on what she'd known for months. She sent me a few more emails over the next weeks, more evidence she'd compiled, more screenshots of Marcus and Lila's conversations after they'd realized they'd been exposed. They'd turned on each other spectacularly. Marcus blamed Lila for being too obvious, for keeping evidence on her phone, for not being careful enough. Lila blamed Marcus for having a wife who snooped, for not keeping their affair secret, for ruining everything. The perfect romance they'd been building fell apart the moment it was exposed to daylight. 2 months after I moved out, the divorce was finalized. I got the house. Lila didn't want it anymore, said it had too many bad memories, conveniently forgot she'd insisted we buy it in the first place. I kept most of our savings since I could prove I'd contributed the majority of it. She kept her car and her personal belongings and walked away with probably 30% of what she'd expected to get. Marcus's divorce was messier. They had kids and custody arrangements and a more complicated financial situation. But his wife kept me updated periodically, told me he'd lost his job when his affair became known at his workplace, told me he and Lila had tried to make a relationship work after both divorces, but it had fallen apart within weeks. Told me they'd both ended up alone, having destroyed their marriages for something that turned out to be more fantasy than reality. I didn't feel good about their suffering. Didn't feel vindicated or triumphant. Mostly just felt tired and sad that so much pain had been caused by two people who couldn't be honest about what they wanted. 6 months after the divorce, I sold the house. Too many memories, good and bad, and I needed a fresh start. Bought a small condo downtown, closer to work, in a building with a gym and a rooftop deck and a community of people who were all starting over for various reasons. Made friends with my neighbors. Started dating again, cautiously, with much better boundaries and much clearer communication about what I wanted from a relationship. Found a therapist who helped me process the betrayal and understand that Lila's actions had never been about my inadequacy. They'd always been about her inability to be satisfied with anything real. A year after the divorce, I ran into Lila at a coffee shop downtown. It was one of those completely unexpected encounters that makes your heart stop for a second because you're not prepared, you're not armored, you're just trying to get your morning coffee, and suddenly you're face to face with your past in a way you haven't been in months. It was awkward and unexpected and strange in the way that seeing your ex always is, even when the relationship ended badly, even when you know intellectually that it's over and you've moved on. Both of us froze when we saw each other, neither quite sure what the protocol was for encountering your ex-wife in public when the divorce had been built on 187 pages of evidence of her betrayal. "Hi," she said finally, and her voice was smaller than I remembered, less confident, stripped of the certainty and entitlement that had characterized so much of our marriage. "Hi," I replied, keeping my tone neutral, not warm but not hostile either, just civil. The tone of two people who used to know each other intimately and now were just strangers with shared history. "You look good," she said, and there was something in her expression that might have been regret, or might have been nostalgia, or might have been nothing at all. "Happy." "I am happy," I said honestly, because it was true. I was happy in a way I hadn't been in years, maybe hadn't been even before the divorce, back when I was still trying desperately to be enough for someone who'd decided I never would be. "You?" She hesitated, her fingers wrapping around her coffee cup in a gesture I recognized as nervousness, even though I no longer had the right or the desire to comfort that nervousness. "I'm working on it." Therapy mostly, a lot of therapy, trying to figure out why I sabotaged the best thing I had, trying to understand what was broken in me that made me treat you the way I did. Have you figured it out? Some of it. Enough to know that it was never about you. It was always about me. About chasing a feeling instead of building a life. About being addicted to the fantasy of what might have been instead of appreciating what I actually had. I think I was in love with the idea of Marcus, not the actual person. And when reality didn't match the fantasy, I blamed you for being real instead of blaming myself for wanting something that didn't exist. That's surprisingly insightful, I said, and I meant it. This level of self-awareness was new, was something I'd never seen from her during our marriage, when everything had always been my fault, my failure, my inadequacy. My therapist is very blunt, doesn't let me make excuses or deflect blame. It's been difficult, but necessary. I'm learning that I hurt a lot of people over the years, not just you, though you bore the brunt of it, because I couldn't be honest about what I really wanted or needed, because I was always looking for someone else to make me happy instead of doing the work myself. I nodded, not sure what to say to that, not sure if acknowledgement was enough, or if she wanted more from me, forgiveness maybe, or validation that she was making progress, or something I wasn't equipped to give. For what it's worth, she continued, her voice quiet enough that I had to lean in slightly to hear her over the ambient noise of the coffee shop. I'm sorry, for all of it, for treating you terribly, for the affair, for making you feel like you weren't enough when you were always more than enough. You deserved better than what I gave you. You deserved honesty and respect and partnership. You deserved someone who could appreciate how good you were instead of constantly looking for something else. I did, I agreed, because it was true, and I'd learned over the past year that I didn't have to minimize my own hurt to make other people comfortable. But I'm okay now. Better than okay, actually. The divorce was painful, but it was also necessary. It freed me from spending the rest of my life trying to measure up to an impossible standard. Freed me from being compared to a memory that got better every time you thought about it. I heard you're seeing someone, she said, and there was something in her tone, not quite jealousy, but maybe wistfulness, maybe acknowledgement that I'd moved on while she was still stuck processing what she'd lost. I am, actually, I confirmed, thinking about Sarah, about how easy and honest and good our relationship was compared to the performance my marriage had become. Someone I met through work. She's kind and honest, and we communicate really well. It's different than what we had. Better. She nodded, looking like she wanted to say something else but couldn't quite find the words. Finally. I'm glad you found someone who appreciates you. You deserve that. You deserved it all along. So do you, I said, and surprising myself, I meant it. I hope you find someone who you can be honest with. Someone you don't need to compare to other people. Someone real. I'm not looking right now, she admitted. I need to figure out my own shit first. Need to learn how to be content with myself before I try to be with anyone else. My therapist says I have patterns I need to break before I can have a healthy relationship. Says I'll just keep repeating the same mistakes otherwise. That's probably wise. How's Jennifer? She asked, and the question surprised me. I hadn't expected her to remember Marcus's wife's name, let alone care how she was doing. She's good, actually. We're friends now. She's been through her own process of recovery and understanding. We check in on each other periodically. She's dating again, moving forward, building a new life. I'm glad. I know I caused her a lot of pain too, her and her kids. There were casualties beyond just us. She paused. What about Marcus? Have you heard anything about him? Not directly. Jennifer mentioned he lost his job when the affair became known, that he and you tried to make something work after both divorces, but it fell apart pretty quickly, that he's struggling, apparently. We did try, she admitted, for about 3 weeks. Turned out that when the fantasy became reality, when we actually had to be together in the real world with all our baggage and all the mess we'd created, It wasn't what either of us thought it would be. Turns out sneaking around and planning a future together is much more exciting than actually living that future when you're both dealing with divorce proceedings and guilt and the reality that we'd destroyed other people's lives for something that wasn't actually that good. "I'm sorry it didn't work out," I said, and was surprised to find that I meant that too, not because I wanted her to be with him, but because I didn't wish her unhappiness even after everything. I'm not. If it had worked out, I would have learned nothing, would have convinced myself that it was all worth it, that leaving you for him was the right choice. Instead, I learned that the problem was never about being with the wrong person. It was about me being wrong, about me not knowing how to appreciate what I had, how to be satisfied with something real and good instead of always chasing something shinier. We talked for a few more minutes after that. Nothing profound, just small talk about work and mutual friends we'd lost touch with, and how her parents were handling the aftermath of our divorce. Surface-level conversation that felt strangely comfortable despite everything that had passed between us, despite the betrayal and the hurt and the lawyers and the division of assets. When we parted ways in the parking lot, Lila paused before getting into her car, a different one than she'd had during our marriage, something smaller and less expensive, probably all she could afford now on her single income. "I hope you're happy, Evan," she said, and it sounded genuine, sounded like she meant it rather than just saying what she thought she should say. "I hope Sarah appreciates you the way I should have. I hope you build something real and lasting with someone who deserves you." "I hope you find peace," I said, echoing something I'd said before, but meaning it more now after seeing how much work she'd apparently been doing on herself. Real peace, not just the next exciting thing, but actual contentment with who you are and what you have. She nodded, got in her car, and drove away. And I stood there in the coffee shop parking lot, feeling something I hadn't expected to feel. Closure. Not forgiveness exactly. I wasn't sure I'd ever fully forgive what she'd done, how she'd made me feel, the years she'd wasted. But an understanding that we'd both played parts in the failure of our marriage, that we'd both learned something even if the lessons had been painful and expensive and taken longer than they should have. An acceptance that this chapter was truly closed, that we'd both move forward from here in our separate directions, that whatever had existed between us was well and truly over in a way that finally felt complete and resolved. I drove home thinking about that phone call, the one I'd made a year and a half ago expecting to confront Marcus, getting Jennifer instead, learning truths that had shattered my understanding of my marriage, but also freed me from it. That call had been a turning point, the moment when everything changed, when my carefully maintained ignorance became impossible to sustain. If Jennifer hadn't answered that phone, if Marcus had picked up instead, would I have learned the truth? Would he have admitted to the affair? Or would he have denied everything, left me in doubt, allowed Lila to continue her deception until she was ready to leave on her own terms? I'd never know. But I was grateful that it had happened the way it did, that Jennifer had been there, had told me the truth, had given me the evidence I needed, not just to leave, but to leave with dignity and clarity and no lingering questions about whether I'd given up too easily. The phone call that had ended my marriage had also saved my life, had saved me from years more of trying to be enough for someone who'd already decided I never would be, had saved me from being the last to know about my wife's affair, had saved me from the particular kind of soul-crushing betrayal of discovering the truth only after she'd already left, already moved on, already rewritten our entire relationship in her mind to justify what she'd done. Instead, I'd gotten to leave first, got to be the one who made the choice, got to walk away with my head held high, knowing that I'd done nothing wrong, that the failure of our marriage wasn't about my inadequacy, but about her inability to appreciate what was real. That made all the difference. I thought about that night, the argument over dishes that had escalated into her calling me pathetic, comparing me to her ex, making it clear I wasn't enough for her. The impulse that had made me call Marcus's number, expecting a confrontation, getting truth instead. If his wife hadn't answered that phone, I might still be married to Lila. Might still be living in ignorance while she planned my replacement. Might still be trying desperately to be exciting enough, interesting enough, good enough for someone who'd decided years ago that I'd never measure up. That phone call had shattered my marriage. Yes. But it had also set me free. I finished my coffee and headed home. To my condo, to my new life, to a future that was mine to build without someone constantly tearing it down. And for the first time in years, I felt like that future was something worth looking forward to.